All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're out in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.
All right, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to the ASAP Afternoon Blitz. I almost forgot what show was all there for a minute. I'm Chris Gonzalez, joined by Mike Hughes. This is Wednesday, August 9th. How's it going, Mike?
Man, it's going, baby. We got football this week, so it's going. Everything's going good. Everything's going to plan. You love to see it. You love to see it.
Even though it's preseason, but I'll be honest with you, I'm a little more excited for preseason this year than I was last year. I don't know if it's just because it's football, but it's that, and I think you'll see a little bit more of the stars play this year than maybe other years, just because not a bunch, but a little more just because you have so many teams with new offenses, new offensive coordinators,
right,
or new quarterbacks in a new offense. So I think you might see them guys play just a tad more than what they used to. I say that, but then also you see some of the injuries that come up just in training camp scares people away as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how some of these teams with new offenses and new personnel handle the preseason.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think for you, first and foremost, I went through this just a couple of years ago with Justin Fields. Like, it's an amazing time. The beginning is always great. You're in the honeymoon stage right now with Anthony Richardson, where everything he does is amazing. Because you're at this point where nobody hates him. You know, it wasn't an overdraft. It wasn't, at least, you know, from regarded by most of the fans, it wasn't a reach. It was viewed as a very good draft signing. So I think that's something that, you know, fans are just going to have a lot of fun with that. And fans are going to be excited. I remember I went to, I believe it was Miami versus Chicago in 2021. And then I went to Mitch Trubisky versus Justin Fields against the Buffalo Bills in 2021 as well. That was really cool. But, you know, you have those moments and you understand, like, when Andy Dalton's on the field, they boo him. When Nick Foles is on the field, you boo him. But when Justin Fields is on the field, he hasn't even taken a single NFL snap. The whole house is rocking. And I feel like for a lot of Colts fans right now, it's going to be a lot of the same. I think Gardner Minshew gets some love, but I think when Richardson steps on the field and takes a couple of snaps, I think it's going to be really electric there.
Oh yeah, that's what everybody's waiting to see. They want to see what he looks like, if he's ready, if he's not ready. Mm-hmm. And like you said, right now nobody hates him until
they do.
Until regular season starts, and if you lose 3 of your first 4 games or something, then everybody will turn on him.
Yeah, 100%. Everyone says he's the future until he's not. Then it's instantly start hating.
And not that that's even right to get mad if they're 1-3 after 4 games to just completely turn on him. Right. I mean, yeah, it depends on how he looks as well. But he's a young guy that people have to remember. It's not like he played a whole lot of college football. So that's what's going to be interesting about this first season, because he hasn't played a lot of football. He's just such a freak athlete that his ceiling is so high, and that's why he got drafted so high. I wouldn't base him getting drafted so high wouldn't really off what he had done. It's what they think he can do.
Yeah, and you also look at it. I look at it like this: when I viewed Anthony Richardson as a player, he's a star player. But winning football games is where I really questioned a lot of things, because I didn't really see a scheme built with him. You know, I didn't see them mold him into a quarterback. I saw them say, listen, we're the Florida Gators. We're not a good football program. We have a freak athlete at quarterback, and we're just going to let him do what he does. And that's a very unfortunate circumstance. You know, we talked about it last year in the NFL with Justin Fields. You know, Luke Getsy and Matt Eberflus didn't really have a scheme trying to mold Justin Fields into becoming, because we really didn't have the pieces around him to do so. So you kind of just let Justin go out there and run amok and do what he does, and really just allow him to keep you in football games. And Anthony Richardson was one of those guys. He had 1 touchdown throughout the first 4-6 games throughout the season last year, the first 6 games. I mean, until he started realizing, man, like, screw the game plan, I'm just going to use my legs. He really started becoming that second half guy, which built his draft stock. But I think one thing, and there's anomalies. Of course, there are going to be anomalies in the world, the Kurt Warners of the world, the Patrick Mahomeses of the world. But more times than not, if you're not coming from a prestigious college football school and you're QB1 starting in your rookie year, I think you're going to have a lot of challenges. And I think it's going to be very difficult, especially with like what you talked about, like, them not really molding him into a starting quarterback, kind of just letting him go out there and play individual football. And that's really what it was. Now, he made great plays, but more times than not, I would just see him being an athlete than anything. So I think I'm really excited to see them slowly mold him into being an actual quarterback on a winning team. I should say on a winning team, because you can always be a quarterback, but on a winning team is important.
And I think what helps him going to the Colts, I think Shane Steichen will put a system around that's built around him. But what's hurting right now with the Colts is you thought you were going to have one of the better running backs in the league in the backfield with them. And right now, who knows what's going to happen? Jonathan Taylor's not even at practice now. He missed practice yesterday to rehab an ankle. I guess his ankle still. And then now, but Shane Steichen did say that as soon as he was rehabbed that he thought he'd be at practice, but we'll see what happens there, because I know Kareem Hunt's meeting with the Colts today,
right?
As well. They just picked up Drake, which a lot of people thought when they picked up Drake that meant they were trading Taylor. I didn't think that. Them going out and picking up Drake to me was more because you just lost Moss to a broken arm, so your only backup running back you had was a rookie from last year and a rookie from this year. It was all your running backs you had right now until depending on what happens with Jonathan Taylor. So they went out and got Drake to try to fill that. But now they got Hunt coming in, so that kind of makes me wonder if they're thinking about maybe trying to move on from Taylor. I just don't think there'll be a big trade market for him, because what's the reason he wants out of Indy? Because they won't give him a contract right now.
Right.
So if you trade for him, he's going to want a contract then. And how many of these teams are really going to want to do that when you have all these other running backs still on the market that nobody has signed? And I'm not saying that all the other running backs on the market are as good as Taylor when he's healthy, but Taylor's coming off a season last year where he wasn't very good. And a lot of that was due to injury. But hey, NFL's recently biased. They're going to see what you're going to do, what you done last year and what you're going to do this year. Now you're missing time because of an ankle injury. So, I mean, I don't think he has a whole lot of leverage to get traded.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things you look at and you say, at the running back position, no one's giving a first round, second round pick. And that's just what it is. We see guys coming in and out of industries, in and out of organizations, left and right. Like, I thought Jordan Howard was going to be the running back for the Chicago Bears for a very long time. And then since then, we've had, and this is since 2016, 2017, 2018 even, we've had Tariq Cohen, David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert, Devontae Foreman, and now we just drafted another kid in Roschon Johnson. And it's like, all of them have been producing 700 plus yards a year. And you have those conversations with yourself to where it's like, the game is changing and the game is evolving, and running backs are becoming more and more frequent throughout the pipeline and just kind of becoming journeymen. I think we're really starting to see guys become journeymen, and where, 20, 30 years ago, you would see guys be running backs for an organization for 10 plus years, the Walter Paytons of the world, the Emmitt Smiths of the world, the Barry Sanders of the world. But, now it's kind of just like listen, we'll rock with you for as long as it's convenient. And the second it's not, we're probably going to drag you through the mud. And with Taylor, first, I do want to say, like, I'm not a believer in the sitting out of practices. I'm not a believer in missing things, because it's like, I understand you want to get paid, but I also understand, from an owner standpoint and from a general manager. Yeah, it's It's not even that though. It's so what bothers me, and I've said this to so many athletes, I've said this to so many people in the business, and I've had these conversations, and I'll keep that same energy with whoever I'm talking to about it. I understand the players. I understand you wanting to get paid, you want that security, but I also look at it like this: you signed a 4-year deal, and you're in year 3, and you're like, I'm not playing until I get another deal. But in your contract, you stated that you were going to play 4 years. And I think personally, like, you should do your due diligence of doing that. Now, the
Yeah.
franchise tag, me and you have talked about it. The franchise tag is a different conversation because that's just bullshit in itself. And that's a whole nother thing. And I'm fully on the player side of that when that happens. But when you sign a deal, and we see it in the NBA, we just saw it with Manny Machado just recently in the MLB, where you signed a 13-year deal, and then in the middle of your deal, oh, I want more money, so I want to renegotiate. It's like, bro, you signed the ink. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's really starting to feel like to me that contracts really don't have as much value as you would think they do. When I was a kid, or even as far as 3-4 years ago, contracts held a lot of weight. Like, this is a signed document. This is legal. And then guys are just like, nah, it's cool. And I'm like,
when I grew up watching sports, it wasn't that it's getting out of your contract. If you were under contract, you were there till your contract was up, unless you got traded. But it wasn't like it is now. And I agree with what you're saying. And with Taylor, that's what surprised me about him, because if you go back to like May, end of April, early May, a reporter had asked him about his contract situation, how he was going into his last season on his rookie deal, and if it was a big hurry to get a contract done. And he was like, "No, I'm gonna I'll play out my contract, and we'll figure it out for next year." Because I mean, yeah, next year they could franchise tag him or re-sign him. But I agree with you on the franchise tag. My only thing on the franchise tag is that's what you have a players union for, and that was what the players union actually came up with. So the players union basically screwed their players on that. But with Taylor, everything was good. Then he fired his agent, got a new agent, and now everything's changed. So I don't know if this new agent's gotten his ear, or if maybe and Dad had brought it up, because I was looking at it like the new agent got in his ear and kind of changed his mind. But like Dad had said the other day, maybe it was a friend or a family member or something. Maybe that's why he fired his other agent, was because a friend or somebody got in his ear. So he fired his other agent to get this agent. So it could have been, but I agree with you on the thing about honoring your contract, because what Taylor's doing now, you're turning the whole conversation, instead of being about the team, because you got all these guys buying in. Because like Pat McAfee was at Colts training camp the other day, and I watch his show a lot. He was talking about how everybody's bought in. It's a totally different atmosphere there with the Colts than what it was last year, with having Steichen and everything. He said all the veterans are bought in, the new guys. He said except one guy. And you see him standing over by himself with the hoodie on, not talking to nobody, talking about Taylor. Well, when you start making it more about yourself than the team in a football setting like that,
right,
it can mess a lot of things up. That's the thing I hate about it, because I'm a big Jonathan Taylor fan too.
Oh, I mean, I've been watching him since Wisconsin, man.
Yeah, since Wisconsin.
An absolute, and me and you and I, Chris Gonzo and Mike Hughes of the ASAP Network are probably some of the only guys who can actually say we watched Jonathan Taylor in college, because we're Midwest guys. No one else is watching Wisconsin football. That's just a fact. But he was an absolute monster. And really quick for the numbers, like, I also see Jonathan's side of it. You know what I mean? And in 2020, in your rookie year, 232 attempts, 1,169 yards, 11 touchdowns, 36 receptions. 2021, 332, doubling it by over 100 attempts and over 1,811 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 40 receptions. And then 2022, even in an injury-ridden season, you cut that 332.5 to 192, still has 861 yards, 4 touchdowns, 28 receptions. So, throughout your first 3 years, yeah, I get it. And they can say, well, you were injured last year. We don't know. We want to see where you're at. But yeah, at the same time, it's like, bro, but like, who I am. You know what I mean? And you know what I can bring. I think the real question for me, though, is how do you feel about the owner? The owner came out and basically, like, it was in a fashion to where I have never seen, maybe once or twice I've seen an owner react this way, but he basically just threw JT under the bus. And he was like, yeah, fuck you then. Basically, and part of my language, but that's basically what he said. He said, okay, cool. We don't give a fuck what you do. Like, we don't. And it was crazy to me because I was like, if I'm the general manager, I'm looking at that and I'm like, oh God, we just lost JT. Like, cause like, what are you doing? Like, what do we, I
Yeah.
remember and really quick, I remember the Blackhawks, God rest his soul, Rocky. Um, he just passed away today. They're doing a memorial for him at United Center. And I remember when the sexual assault scandal came out with the team and everything like that, and everybody was apologizing, everybody was talking, everybody was doing their thing, and then they interviewed Rocky about it, and he was like, "Why the fuck do you keep asking me these questions?" And I was like, "Oh my God!" Like that's like one of those. That's like I love owners because owners are just like they're people, you know what I mean? And they don't have PR, they don't care. What you see is what you get. So how do you feel about that with Jonathan Taylor? And do you think the owner kind of jumped the gun a little bit?
I think he did jump the gun a little bit, but it's Jim Irsay, and that's how he always is. You never know what that dude's going to say. There's a lot of times that if a dude Jim Irsay, I love Jim Irsay because he's entertaining. But when you're running a football team, there's times to be on social media and on Twitter and shit being entertaining, and there's times to just keep your mouth shut. And this is one of the times he probably should have kept his mouth shut. I think he hurt the situation more than he helped it. Because hell, they had a meeting on the bus, and then he get and the media reported it weird because the media made it come out like they had the meeting on the bus, and then Jonathan Taylor demanded a trade, but it actually was the other way around. He had already demanded or asked for a trade before they ever met on the bus. But then Ursay coming out after that meeting on the bus and saying what he did about if Jonathan Taylor's gone tomorrow and I die, the league goes on without us. Nobody's going to worry about us. It's like, what was the point of that comment anyway?
In a sense, though, he's
I mean, it's
not wrong.
true.
He's
No, he's
not
not
wrong.
wrong,
You
but it
know what
wasn't
I
the right
mean?
time to make that comment.
Like, listen. At the end of the day, and this is how I view everything. And just growing up, you start to learn these things. Kobe Bryant passed away 3 years ago. The league hasn't missed a beat. You know what I mean? It was tragic. It was horrible, and it was something that never should have happened. But like life goes on, and Kobe talked about that a lot, and I learned a lot about that stuff from him. And it's crazy to think that he ended up being one of the guys that just goes way too early. But you have those conversations with yourself all the time that like, listen, it doesn't revolve around you. It's your world for sure because it's your life, but the one thing is, man, and somebody always tells me this, my boy Josh, he always says life goes on, even if yours doesn't. Always says that to me. And I'm like, damn, hold on. It kind of puts things in the perspective that, like, you're not as big as you think you are. And,
A little bit
and
of little bit of that harsh truth.
it's real. It's real. And that's why I think, like, that's a whole different, that's a motivational podcast we could talk about. Just like, that's why I live every day, just trying to do things and trying to do what we're doing. But for Jonathan Taylor, you look at it from his point. Okay, cool. So we can die tomorrow. So I want as much money for my family that I could potentially get and provide for them so we can have generational wealth. And that's a conversation that the owner kind of messed up on because it's like, yeah, you're right. I could blow out my knee. I could lose my legs tomorrow. So I need to get paid today. And that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. And I don't pity the owners because, again, you're owners. You know what I mean? Like you have billions and billions of dollars, unless you're the Oakland A's. But I think at the end of the day, man, you got to look at that from Jonathan Taylor's perspective. I understand it. And I also think attitude reflects leadership. And I think when you look at his attitude and him wearing a hoodie at practice and Pat McAfee talking about it, I think Pat's one of those guys that should understand it better than anybody. This isn't just for Jonathan. This is for literally everybody in that organization, everybody in this league that's getting thrown around by these owners. And I think it's something to where if he doesn't stand up for himself, he's sitting down for everybody else. So I think that's really how he's looking at it. I think he looks at it as, listen, respectfully, Saquon kind of folded. Saquon folded pretty early. If I was Saquon Barkley and they gave Daniel Jones $100 million and I'm only getting 11, I would lose my shit Gonzo. I would lose my absolute mind. So like I see Jonathan Taylor's point of it where it's like, no, I'm not going out there and just playing for you in this washed, not to say it's a washed season, but it's a rookie quarterback. We really don't know what's going on. Like, I'm not playing for nothing. I'm sure if he was playing for the Kansas City Chiefs right now, it'd be a very different conversation.
Oh no, I understand that. I just think, with the way the running back market is, I don't know if this was the right time to make that stand. Just
Bad
because
time.
the way these, huh?
I said very bad time.
Yeah,
Kareem Hunt's ready to walk in there and take his job. Like, that's just.
Or I mean, there's a lot of good running backs out there, but it goes back to your point too. It's like it's easy to find replacement running backs, like you said with the Bears. They just keep bringing in young guys, and they're productive. And as long as that keeps happening, these owners they're not going to want to pay these running backs until they got to change the way the running back contract's set up. Is what I believe.
Yeah.
If they wanted to change this, because right now teams can control running back for 7 years. Mm-hmm. Especially if you get drafted in the first, second round where you get that option, 5th-year option. Well, right. You do that, a lot of these running backs, that's their whole career.
Most definitely. That's usually the span of it. To be honest, that's longer than the normal NFL span for any player. Yeah. Guys in the NFL typically don't spend more than 10 years in the league, more times than not. You get your superstars, obviously, and your star players, but most guys are in and out of the league by the first time their rookie deals are up. You know what I mean? And that's something that I think a lot of guys aren't paying attention to. But I'm happy Greg's here from Red Kingdom. That's my guy, because I wanted to bring this up too. Do you think that a bigger part of the issue is just the way the offenses have been going in football lately? Because I'm looking at the Kansas City Chiefs, who Greg, respectfully, because Greg will tell me they have the best running back in the world, but not really. Greg's a great guy, but he's very humble. But you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, they were kind of running back by committee. And then obviously Miles Sanders had a phenomenal year, but they didn't even feel like, keeping him. And they just keep bringing guys in and out. They bring in Swift. Then you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, who throughout their entire tenure under Patrick Mahomes, they've gone through Kareem Hunt, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, all these different guys. Who's the newest one? Isaiah Pacheco and a bunch of other guys. And it's like you're starting to see teams go to the Super Bowl without a permanent RB1, kind of just like a revolving door of what they're doing. We're running the offense through the quarterback, and that's what we're doing. And when you talk about 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s football, even early 2000s, dominant running backs were prominent, and they were so important to an offense. They really were. The Matt Fortes of the world, the Adrian Petersons of the world, like we talked about earlier, the Gale Sears, the Walter Paytons, the Emmitt Smiths. We can do it all day. You have those conversations now, though. When Patrick Mahomes is slinging 440 on the regular from passing yards and scrambling for 50, like it's a different era of football. And I think what hurts them the most, it's not the owners, it's not the contracts. It's literally, to Greg's point, it's a quarterback-driven league. And the wide receivers are becoming even more top level. And you made a point the other day, the tight ends of the world, the Kelseys, the Kittles, the Kyle Pitts, maybe, who knows? But, you look at these guys and you go, they're becoming hybrids at their position. Running backs, they're just kind of the same as what they were. You get the Alvin Kamaras of the world, but those are anomalies. You know what I mean? They're not everybody's like that.
Yeah, and at running back, the ones that running back position, the ones I see that are still going to get paid, is going to be like your guys like McCaffrey that are built like him, that are basically a receiver and running back. And even him, there's a lot of people that were afraid to pay him at first because of the injuries he had. I'm still
worried about that.
Yeah, but if you can stay healthy and be a guy like him, where they can put you at any receiving position as well, I think that's going to be the new style running back that starts making the bigger money.
Yeah, most definitely, man. I mean, it's
just being a regular running back isn't going to cut it.
Right. Like, what do you like? It sucks. It sucks, and it's horrible, and it's one of those things where you feel for them, because you're like, listen, like, you're getting the short end of the stick. But I always make this point. I don't care what anybody says. You could talk about how it's such two different positions. But I'd never hear kickers complain about how much they make. I never hear, and I understand it's two very different positions. But again, they're sacrificing their body. They're still putting in just as much work as everybody else. And the contracts are like $1 million a year, to $5 million a year. And it sucks. It really does. But again, it's
And when
still
they get
over $1 million a year.
And when a kicker gets put out in the field, a lot of times it's the most pressure situation of the game.
Right.
You know what I mean? Especially for a field goal kicker. And and if they miss it, they get trashed, get ran out of town. I mean,
and you think about it, they get
look what
4
happened
or
in
5 of them.
Chicago. Look what happened in Chicago where the guy double doinked the kick.
Man.
Hell, they wanted that city wanted to kill that dude.
He was never.
He was probably one of the lowest paid players on the team.
Yeah, he was never seen again either. He was never seen again either in Chicago. So, and never will. We're still looking for him to this day. But no, but that's a great point because you get 4 or 5 moments in the NFL when you're a kicker each week, I would imagine. You know what I mean? You get 4 or 5, and that's really what it is. So when you're a running back, you get over 20 attempts a game. Maybe, we'll see what happens. Maybe you get some receiving yards. We'll see where it goes. If you fumble the ball one time, it's not the end of the world. If you're a kicker and you double doink in the playoffs, man, bro, like that's your ass. And that's really what it is. And I'm not trying to take the owner's side of it. I'm really not. But to look at it from both perspectives, I have to look at it from a business side and say, listen, it's just not in our best investment right now to be paying you this much money when we're going to have to pay Anthony Richardson at some point, when Michael Pittman wants to get paid.
Be different if they're wanting the salary cap. If the NFL was illegal,
Very
the salary cap, then I would definitely be all about on the players' side because these cheap owners just don't want to pay people. But with there being a salary cap, you kind of got to be diligent on what you spend on each player because you got to fit everything under that cap. And like you said, if you have a quarterback that's getting ready to come up that you got to pay, or linebacker, defensive end, I mean, them are the positions that are getting more of the money now.
Most definitely, man. And it's just hard. It really is. It's one of those things where you don't want to have these conversations. You want everybody to get their bag, but it's like the Chiefs, we have Pacheco. I believe he'll rush for 1,000 yards this season, but I know he'll only be with the team until his contract is over. And that's what it is. You know what I mean? Like, one thing I've learned, you got to really love a running back to get his jersey these days. You gotta be a fan of that guy no matter where he goes, because if you're just getting it because he's on your team, you're making a mistake. And I feel the same way about quarterbacks more times than not, especially in Chicago. But I took a chance with Fields. I did take a chance with Fields, but bought that as soon as they drafted him. I was like, I love this kid. But you look at that and you just say, these guys are a dime a dozen, and that's how they view them. And there isn't value when you continuously see the quarterback market and price go up and up and up and up, and it continues to stagger. I mean, the Patrick Mahomes deal, over $400 million, seems like a steal now compared to what Justin Herbert and company are getting paid, what Joe Burrow is about to get paid, what Justin Fields could potentially one day get paid. Like Trevor Lawrence, guys like that, what are they going to be getting paid, Gonzo? Is it going to be like $500-600 million at some point? And that's when you see that, and that's climbing. The wide receivers are climbing. The linebackers, Roquan Smith with the Ravens just got paid, one of the highest paid linebackers ever. You're seeing all these positions climb. Derwin James from the Chargers, highest paid safety. And Jamal Adams was just the highest paid safety not too long ago. You're seeing these things climb and the running back one go down. And that shows you how the league views them. That shows you how everybody's viewing that and saying, listen, it's a lot easier. Respectfully, it's a lot easier to replace Joe Mixon to this Bengals offense than it is Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. And that's just the reality of the situation. It just is. And I'm so, again, like, I feel like I would be such a great business person because I am so sorry. Like, I want to help you, but I can't. There's nothing I can do to help you. And it's not because of you. It's not because of what you're doing. Is Justin more valuable than JT? Justin Fields, 110%. Any quarterback that is your franchise quarterback is 10 times more valuable than a running back who's, what is it, Chris? Their longevity in the NFL, an average running back is 3 to 4 years.
Yep.
Like, what are we talking about? And then, of course, you have your franchise guys who are going to be in this league, but name me 10 running backs who will play over 10 years currently in the league. And then name me how many running backs there are currently in the league. You know what I mean? Like, there's hundreds of running backs in this league. But how many are actually going to be here 10 years from now that are currently on a roster? It's not a lot. Probably less than 15.
Let me ask you this, Mike, because I just kind of thought of this with all this, because I mentioned the salary cap. And we saw in the NBA, you even got these mid-tier players now that are making so much money. The guys that aren't even they're just basically average players compared to the other NBA players, and they're making 40, 50 million a year.
Yeah.
So we're seeing that in the NBA. Do you think maybe in the NFL, if that we'll see the salary cap maybe go up? And if that happened, could that help? Do you think that could help the running back position? Or do you think that if the salary cap goes up, the quarterbacks and the wide receivers and the linebackers and them are just going to get richer?
I think they start paying the kickers first. No, I'm kidding. No, I think it definitely would. I think it definitely would be like, well, okay, well, we could pay you now. You know what I mean? My AC just turned on, and I thought
the way the NFL makes money, the way the NFL is growing and the money they make, there's no reason that they couldn't raise the salary cap.
Yeah,
I mean, hell, you just had 6.3 million people watch a preseason game. That's more. Mm-hmm. That's more people that watch any other league's finals games.
Right. But I will say that here's something that, just to play devil's advocate. So they raised the salary cap, right? I'm just going to spend it on other things. I'm just going to continue bringing in more wide receivers. If you raise the salary cap, right? And I'm going to keep it to where I was at. The Cincinnati Bengals. If I'm the Cincinnati Bengals, say you add an extra $100 million, right? And you add $100 extra million, and I have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and all these other guys, Joe Mixon. Am I going to pay Joe Mixon, or am I going to bring in Justin Jefferson? Am I going to try to bring in another wide receiver to pair up with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and obviously Joe Burrow? Or am I just going to pay T. Higgins? Because right now they're kind of in that weird window of not knowing what's going to happen with T. I'm paying T. I'm paying T before I'm paying Joe.
Or you're going to pay a pass rusher before you go to pay
a pass rusher, a nose tackle, a linebacker, something along those lines, a prime corner, which they desperately need. It's a conversation to where even if you raise the money, I think a lot of these guys would spend it in different places just because they know how it's like an apple tree, man. You just walk up to the tree, boom, you pull one off, and that's it. There's a running back.
Jay says they need to put caps on positions. I think that'd be the only way you're going to get. I think that is one of the only ways you're going to get where you're going to get like running backs and some of these positions like that paid more. But I don't know if I see. I don't think I see players. The rest of the NFL players agreeing to put caps on positions because, hey, just because this guy's. I understand he's not getting what he wants, and I feel bad for him. But just because he's not getting what he wants, don't mean I want to sign up for me not to be able to get what I want.
Right.
You know what I mean? You think some of these quarterbacks like Joe Burrow, these guys are gonna be like, oh yeah, put a cap on what we can make, so somebody else can make more. It's not going to. I don't think that'll.
No, because
players agreeing to that.
Because if it was the other way around and the running backs are making more money than the quarterbacks, like at the end of the day, like it's, this is just who's affected by it. And I always laugh because the kickers are always the one who are just kind of happy to be there. You know what I mean? Like they're not mad. They're not upset with how much they make. They're just like, we appreciate you guys having us. You know what I mean? They come in here, kick a few footballs, and that's it. And that's, it's not to discredit what they do, but it's like, it puts things in perspective that, like, grateful to be in the NFL is one thing. Making sure you take care of your family and your wealth is another. And I think when you separate the two, it's black and white. But when you put them together, it's really hard and it's really conflicting. So I think at the end of the day, it's a business, and I think JT is going to do what he needs to do. It's definitely going to be interesting. I wish I could go to Bears versus Colts in week 2. I'll definitely have to miss that one, but it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting for sure, just to see how that looks. And man, to be honest with you, it's one of those things, man. It really is, because, we see what guys like Christian McCaffrey, when they become available, what did Christian McCaffrey go for? Do you remember in the trade? It wasn't anything crazy. And this was one of the best premier running backs in the league. And you look at that and you go, if I'm the Colts, I could make a trade for an Alvin Kamara, for, somebody else, a Dalvin Cook or whatever. I could do whatever I want to do. I could bring in Kareem Hunt, who was phenomenal in the Cleveland Browns organization. Pardon me. He was phenomenal in the Cleveland Browns organization, and the only thing that was holding him back from his stats doubling was the best running back in all of football, in Nick Chubb. And I will continue to say Nick Chubb is the best running back in all of football because I believe that. But Nick Chubb is literally like an 80s running back. I love it. He's a stud. But, he's one of those guys too that will he get paid? I don't know.
People go nuts if Cleveland don't pay him after they gave Deshaun Watson the fully guaranteed $235 million deal. There's going to be a big blow up about that as well.
Man, I mean, I don't even know what to say. That deal in itself is just like, no matter what you do, I don't even care if you let the kicker leave. I'm going to be like, well, I would have kept the kicker before Watson, but Watson could have a phenomenal year. I'm not sold out on him yet.
I'm not saying I feel the same way. I think he could have a bounce back year this year because now it's going to be almost like a regular season for him. He gets a full preseason to get ready. You don't have all the other outside of off the field issues going on, at least that we know of. But so I'd look for him to have a better year this year. But what goes back to me is he's on the Browns. So
yeah, I don't know who their wide receiver one even is. So it's a problem. Oh man.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it could very, very well be a big problem. What did Jay said? Maybe percentage caps, like such position can only account for so much amount of the salary. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they try to come up with.
I don't think they do. I don't think they care. I think at the end of the day, people are going to watch football. You know what I mean? Like, how many Colts fans are not going to watch their first preseason game because Jonathan Taylor is not there? Jonathan Taylor's friends and family are going to be the only people not watching. You know what I mean? Like, that's really it. And I'm sure I bet you my bottom dollar, Chris Gonzo, I will mark it right now at 12:48. I bet you Jonathan Taylor watches that game.
Oh yeah, I bet he does. Because he's going to see what his replacements are doing for one.
Exactly. But if you're watching your own game and you're not there, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, how many people are going to be watching the Colts this year because of Anthony Richardson? Like, we do not care if you don't play. And that's really what it is. Like, we have these conversations on the network. We have these conversations at work and life. We have these conversations on my football team, on my baseball team. When I've coached kids, you have these conversations of, listen, bro, if you don't want to be here, I'm your starting pitcher. What are you going to do without me? Fucking 15-year-old didn't tell me this. I just looked at him. I go, myself, Mike Hughes, will put the third baseman on the mound, and I have no problem losing this game 11-0. Why? Because this is my job. Now, if you don't want to do yours, that's perfectly fine, but I have my reason to why we lost that game. If the Colts lose X amount of games this year and they can't run the football effectively outside of Anthony Richardson, okay, that's you, bro. That's your fault. It's not the team's fault. It's not the organization's fault. It's not the owner's fault. It's your fault because you chose not to go. Now, if the owner straight flat out said, listen, we're not paying you ever. We don't want to pay you. All right, I'd sit out too. 100%. That's where the Colts owner kind of messed up because it was like, yeah, we're not paying you. And I was like, oh, you shouldn't have said that because you have leverage. As an owner, you have leverage in a sense to where it's like, we want him. We want to re-sign him. We want to work out a deal. This guy practically just said, fuck you. We're not paying you. You're not telling me what to do. And I was like, oh, that's kind of the wrong way to look at it. You know, not that you want to manipulate these guys, but you want it to be known that you're not dictating how this narrative is being driven. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to make us like the bad guy. Like, this is just the business. This is what it is. It's not just you. It's Alvin Kamara. It's Christian McCaffrey. It's Saquon Barkley. It's everybody from top to bottom that's not getting paid these wages that you want to get paid. It's not just you. And like we talked about earlier, you know, we can die tomorrow. The ASAP network will still be running. And I think at the end of the day, it'll be a lot less beautiful without me and Gonzo here. But, you know, two handsome individuals.
But they're not going to miss us. Hell, they actually might throw a party that we're gone. Who knows?
Man, who knows? I know Jay will. I'll be texting him at like 3 a.m. all the time. But
I don't have to deal with that headache anymore.
Man, but it really is at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like, dude, you're the only one that you're affecting because no matter what, we're doing what we're doing. We're going to run it the way we're running it. And the way the Colts offense looks this year with Anthony Richardson, it's not going to be on Jonathan Taylor's back. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't going to be like, hey, we need you to run 2,000 yards this year. Like, no, we want to see Anthony develop because, like we said, it's a quarterback-driven league. It's not your team anymore, dog. You are not the face of the franchise. Jonathan Taylor, I think, for the last 3 years was the face of the franchise, 100%.
Yeah.
But with Anthony Richardson here,
got ancient quarterback last year, and then
he's the next to kin. You know what I mean? He's the new face of the league. He's the new face of the franchise, and that's the expectations that you carry with that. So, bye. Like, okay, cool. Thanks for everything. You know what I mean? Like, we'll see you on the Bears practice, though. You know what I was thinking? I'm thinking during the game, week 2, if we just trade him in the middle of the game to the Bears, he just walks across the sideline, scoops up.
Hey, you see that in baseball?
Yeah, I mean, hey.
One guy was out there warming up. They came out and got him. Oh, you just been traded. You need to go over that dugout.
It was Boston and Houston, right?
Yeah.
That was awesome. He said, hell no. Nah. He went home. He was not happy.
Oh, I wouldn't be either. Did you watch any of the Hard Knocks last night?
I didn't. Who was on that? It's the New York Jets. Yeah, I haven't yet. I'm gonna watch it.
It's pretty good. I watched it last night. It was episode 1. Talked some about, of course, the Sean Payton's comments about Nathaniel Hackett. I had a little bit of that on there. A lot of stuff about Rodgers and like the receivers and talking about Rodgers and stuff. But it was pretty interesting. I'll definitely watch probably next week. See where they go with it.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't even know
it's the first time I watched Hard. Yeah, only reason I knew is because when I got home from my doctor's appointment yesterday, I turned McAfee on and they were talking about it. That came on 10 o'clock last night. So I might maybe check that out.
Yeah, you know that's Rodgers' bestie, so he's got to hype it up.
Oh yeah, because I'm sure he's gonna have Rodgers on there every week again, every Tuesday. I'm gonna try to watch more of it because I haven't really watched a whole lot of Hard Knocks. And I did like that. Have you watched that Netflix series that Peyton Manning has part of, that Quarterbacks? Did you watch it? Have you watched that yet?
I'm on episode 3. I haven't finished it. I've been just, it's you really got to sit there and watch it because I love it and I want to like give it my full attention. I don't really like the Kirk Cousins ones, but it's still fun. Kirk is just a weird guy, and I didn't realize Kirk was like, he's just like, Kirk Cousins is the whitest guy I know, and I think I can confirm that. I think we can all confirm that. Like, he's just like your stereotypical Christian white guy, you know what I mean? He just lives on a farm with his family. He's a good guy, you know what I mean? But I just think they picked a weird group. I love the Patrick Mahomes stuff. Mariota is actually an interesting story because it kind of gives you like I think the idea of what they're basing it off of was kind of like, here's the face of the league. Here's a guy who's a journeyman, and here's a guy who's kind of just in the middle. And I think it's really dope to see all different interactions between the 3 of them. And I'm really excited about Hard Knocks because then you get a guy like Rodgers, and I think that's just going to be a lot of fun. And there's so many names on that team that like I'm excited to see. Maybe a couple weeks from now you see Dalvin Cook on the show. You know what I mean? And I think, hearing the process of him joining the team, him being at their practices before he signed, like it'll be interesting to see all that.
Yeah, I really thought Cook would sign when he was there, but from what I'm hearing, he's wanting to be in a role where he's more the main guy. I guess that's what kind of.
Has he not signed?
Who did I say?
Did he sign?
Did I say Cook?
Yeah.
No, he hadn't signed yet, or did he? Unless he did yesterday and I missed it.
No, I was under the impression that he signed because I keep hearing all these things about him being a Jet.
No, he went to their thing, but he hasn't signed yet. And I heard some of it is because he was kind of wanting to be like the main guy, and he don't know if he'll be the main guy once Breece Hall comes back.
Well, yeah, no shit, bro. You know what I mean? Like, oh man. Pro Bowl leaves Jets visit without deal, still mutual interest. Jesus Christ, that was a week ago. I thought this was done and over, bro. I really did. I'm sorry, America. I apologize, but I was just under the impression that it went well. They were saying how happy he was.
I was the same until I heard that, and I was like, "Oh, I thought he was definitely go aside there." I didn't.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Breece Hall is an absolute monster. But I'll say it like this. He's going to miss the beginning of the season, most likely, with a torn ACL. Coming off of that, still rehabbing. He's not going to be himself. If you're Dalvin Cook, then do something about it. Like, if Dalvin gets hot and Dalvin becomes RB1 to start the season, there won't be a transition. There'll just be Breece Hall behind him. You know what I mean? Like, dude, like that's the shit that pisses me off. Is like you just want things handed to you, and it's like you got to work for it, bro. Like there's a young buck in this organization that's hungry and he wants it. Coming off an injury, he's coming off of one of the biggest injuries a running back can have in a torn ACL. You better make for that opportunity. But to Dalvin's point, Dalvin hasn't been healthy either.
Yeah. And who knows what Breece Hall's going to look. Don't get me wrong. I hope Breece Hall gets back.
You can say it. I completely agree.
It's great, but we've seen where it could take over a year for these guys to come back from injuries like that before they even start looking close to themselves.
Look at Saquon Barkley. You know, last year was Saquon's first real good year back since tearing his ACL in 2020, 2021. Like that's the reality of the situation. And he's back, and that's awesome. But if I'm Dalvin Cook, I'm not worried about it. I'm like, all right, cool.
With the Dallas Cowboys, why they haven't been more aggressive at the running back position with Tony Pollard coming off a broken leg makes no sense to me. You just expect the dude to break his leg and 6 months later he's going to be right back to where he used to be. I mean, come on.
That's how Jerry thinks, man. It's a whole different. That's not now. See, that's logical right there. The way you're thinking, we don't do logical in Jerry world. We do straight grit and grind all the time. So, I mean, broke your leg, get back out there, be a man.
Guy breaks a leg or tears the ACL, it usually takes over a year. Well, fuck.
Nope.
NBA, Klay Thompson.
Get back out there, bro.
He's still trying to get back to normal. Klay Thompson's still trying to get back to normal from his leg injuries. I mean, it's been what, 2 years?
Oh, man, Clay's been
about a season because he had the back-to-back injuries.
I would say Clay got hurt 3 or 4 years ago.
Damn, has it been? Yeah, it has been that long because KD was still there the first time he got hurt.
Right. The first time he got hurt, KD was there, that was 2019. Then he got hurt again in 2020. So 2021, 2022, and then this will be 2023. Because he's only been back 2 seasons. First one, they won a chip. He was like kind of there in the middle of the year. And then the second one was this
last year. He was up and down.
Yeah. A lot better, though.
His thing. He ain't been able to find that consistency since he got back.
Also, Gonzo, have you watched the Steph Curry documentary on Apple TV?
No, I haven't watched it yet. That's something I want to check out.
I checked it out. It was, you could definitely do it, bro. It's like $2 to get Apple TV. And then I canceled it like immediately after. But I was like, yeah, I don't need this. I just wanted to watch the documentary. But Klay Thompson was like did not speak in it at all. And I thought like he did not have a line, at least not to my recollection. Like he wasn't as involved in it as I thought he'd be. And they really didn't even talk about like I understand it's all about Curry, you know, from him at Davidson all the way to where he is now. But I thought at some point in that they would have like KD speak and Clay speak and Dre speak, kind of just like who he is, Steve Kerr. But I think the majority of it was obviously about Davidson and what he did with the Final Four and just being involved in that way back when, and really just like being that underrated guy. And obviously it's the name of the fucking show, but it's something to where I was like, it was mad weird that you didn't talk about like your experiences with Clay early on in the Warriors, you know, growing up together and going from nothing together to 4-time champs. It's like
you two had always been tied together.
Yeah, right. And it was cool to kind of see it like separated though, them not together, because you get to see it from his point of view. He's kind of in it, but not really. But I thought it was interesting. There was one Kevin Durant interaction, but it wasn't even of them playing together. It was of them just like shaking up after he hit the most threes of all time. And it was just like, it was cool, but I felt like there was just parts missing to it. That I think the fans would have definitely thought was dope. Like I would have loved to see Clay talk more about like watching him develop over time, or Steve, or even KD, and like a bunch of other guys, and or Draymond. Like you didn't get that, and I thought it was kind of, I don't know. I get that it wasn't the point, though. You know what I mean? The point was Davidson. The point was how he got into the league, how he became who he is, and that's cool. But during the NBA portion of it, I thought there'd be more about that, but there wasn't. It was weird, but it was still really good. I liked it. I want to watch the LeBron one of when they're kids in high school. I heard that's like a movie or something. It's not a show, but it's a movie. It's about, like, I forget what it's called, but it's about LeBron and his high school teammates and how good they were. And it sounds really interesting. So I think that's on something.
I'd like to watch that too, because I remember watching LeBron's games, high school games on TV, and I was like, and back then, I mean, that was one of the first players you saw. I mean, you saw a few other ones, but it was one of the first time you saw like nationally like that, where they were televising high school games for a guy. And so I remember watching those back in the day. Of course, you had Sean Kemp back then too. That was real good. But man, yeah, I'd like to watch one about LeBron. I like watching them sports documentaries, man. You learn a lot more about the stars and the players than just what they do on the field, which is always interesting. That's why I really like that quarterbacks thing. I thought Hard Knocks was good last night. And like I said, I haven't watched a whole lot of Hard Knocks. I don't know, it was just on HBO, which I mean, I get HBO, but a lot of times I would forget that, like, what night it came on and what time. Like, I didn't know it was going to be on at 10 o'clock last night.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I just got lucky.
What I normally do, normally I'll wait until all of them get released and then just watch them during the normal season, because I don't got time week by week. You know, I do have time, but I want to watch them all. You know what I mean? And that's what I usually do. But with the Rodgers one, I'm fiending for some Aaron. I love Aaron Rodgers so much. It's the first time as a Bears fan I can actually say that. I love Aaron Rodgers. I always have loved Aaron Rodgers, but I just hate him when he's on the Packers. So now that he's not on the Packers, I can actually root for him. Cheer him on. You know, he's one of the best to ever do it, man, and he really is. So I'm excited about it. He's anywhere except Green Bay, and you'll love to see it. And he fucked up their future for the next 5-6 years, so you'll love to see that too.
I think he's going to have a good year this year.
I
know
think
he
so
had a little
too.
bit of a down year last. He had a little bit of a down year last year. Well,
yeah,
it's funny because everybody says he had a down year, but if you look at his numbers, it's still better than a large percentage of quarterbacks throughout the league. But it was a down year for him.
I would love that for Justin Fields.
I look for him to have a big year this year.
100%.
I look for him to have a big year this year.
It's kind of like, I look at what you had. You know, Robert Tonyan was coming off a torn ACL. You know, Christian Watson was a rookie. The other rookie, Romeo Dobbs, I believe his name is. He was a rookie. So, you know, you got a lot of guys in this organization that just aren't what you want them to be. Randall Cobb, you know, like Alan Lazard, like what are we talking about? You know what I mean? You had a good running back committee, but with AJ Dillon and obviously Aaron Jones. But I think at the end of the day, you have to look at it and say what he's going to with Garrett Wilson, CJ Uzuma, you know, all these other studs, Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, you know, they're all coming back as well with them. They weren't great with Green Bay, but they're familiar faces. You have a wide receiver one in Garrett Wilson, a young stud who's ready to go. You have a Breece Hall. You could potentially have a Dalvin Cook. You have a top 10 defense. You know, you have a defensive coordinator as a head coach. And I think there's so many different things you can do with that. You know, what happens with Nathaniel Hackett, I have no idea. But if Rodgers trusts him, they work together in Green Bay. And we'll see. Was it Russell Wilson or was it Nathaniel Hackett? And I think it's going to start to show very early. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see who it is. Greg said, hey, Mike, do you think the Bears will make the playoffs this year? 100%. I think, and I was on the fence about it. And I told Gonzo this, I was on the fence about it for a while. I think they're in a window of 8 to 11 wins, in my opinion, right now. And that was before signing Yannick Ngakoue. And I think when you bring in a guy like Yannick, this Bears defense last year had 6.5 sacks. 4.5 of them came from our safety. Like that's a horrible mark. That is a horrible stat. That is a horrible statistic because as much and as a safety, I love that for Jaquan Brisker as a rookie. I think he's going to be an all-pro safety at one point in his career. I think if you haven't checked out his stuff already, definitely check him out. He's an absolute stud. He is a hitting machine. He reminds me of Jamal Adams and Eddie Jackson, if that makes sense. He's like a hybrid of both of those guys, or like a Derwin James. Really, just make that make sense. But when you bring in a guy like DeMarcus Waller, who has 7.5 sacks last year with the Tennessee Titans, 7.5, which is more than the entirety of the Chicago Bears defense as a whole last year. Then you bring in a guy like Yannick Ngakoue, who had 9.5, and in every year since 2016, he's had a minimum of 8. There's only 6 guys who have had more sacks than him since 2016. Khalil Mack, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Chandler Jones, Aaron Donald, and I believe Cameron Jordan. And that's great company to be in. Now, the only knock, and Gonzo and I have talked about it, is, oh, well, he's been on 4 teams in 3 years. I don't care. He's on my team now. That's all that matters. I don't care. Suck me, blow me. Don't care. He's on my team. That's really how I feel. I don't want to hear nothing about like, oh, he might want to leave at the end of the year. I don't care about the end of the year. I care about right now. The Bears are trading for Chase Young towards the end of the next year. So I'm excited about that. Not excited about Chase Claypool. But
would you get excited about Claypool?
Yeah, you know what though? And to that point, we bring in Tremaine Edmonds, we bring in TJ Edwards, we bring in all these other studs. We have one of the best secondaries, one of the youngest secondaries in all of football. You have the top 5 linebacker core. You bring in 2 solid pass rushers. You got a couple rookie nose tackles. I'm loving what I'm seeing from this Bears defense, and that's just the defense. Listen, I just went on for 2 minutes about the defense, but I can go on for 2 hours about what this offense could be with DJ Moore, Justin Fields, Mooney, Claypool, Kmet, Tunyon. I mean, we can do that. Rashawn Johnson, Khalil Herbert, Foreman, like this new offensive line. It's all beautiful. And when you look at that, on top of the fact that the NFC North is whatever, like, sure, cool. Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings are doing their thing. They lost some pieces. They gained some pieces. I love Jordan Addison. I still think he's going to be a star in this league. Justin Jefferson is obviously still an amazing player. The Detroit Lions are on the rise, but the head honcho is gone. And when the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers are out of the mix, it's open season for anybody. And I think if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be the Bears. Because I'm not a big believer in Dan Campbell. I think the Vikings, if anything, are the team that I look at right now and say I still think they're the ones because they know what they're doing. Like at the end of the day, Gonzo, like the first year with Jared Goff and Dan Campbell, they went 0-5 to start the year. The next year they go 1-6 to start the year. They're a great second half team, but by the time the second half starts, they are 0-7. They're just playing catch up just to break 500. Yeah. So I'd like to see how they start off the year.
I think honestly, I think the Lions and the Bears are going to be the 2 teams at the top of that division. Not in that particular order, but I think they're going to be the top 2 teams in the North.
Yeah.
The Vikings, I just don't. Dude, they won 11 like 1-score games last year. How many of those are you going to win this year? You know what I mean? Sometimes that luck that the ball don't always bounce your way to win those real close games.
Right.
It seemed like last year the ball always was bouncing their way. And I'm still a little cautious on their head coach, O'Connell. They brought him in to get that offense better, but I mean, I like him, but I thought the offense would look a little better with him there when they brought him in. Maybe it was because I think that was the first year with him, wasn't it? So maybe it'll look more like he wants it to this year. But Minnesota, they got to improve their defense. If they're going to compete for that division, their defense has to get better because their defense was terrible.
They got worse. And they got worse at that. They lost a couple pieces. And I do want to ask you this though, because you did watch the quarterback show. There were times where I was like, I'm watching the show and I'm like, O'Connell is like a dog. Like I love O'Connell, and I'm starting to really fall for him. And like I'm believing in him. And I'm believing in him and who he is. But then in the show, okay, we got the momentum. Here we go. Big drive. Kirk Cousins interception. And I'm like, and you could see it on O'Connell's face to where he's like what the fuck? Like we're right there. They're right on the cusp of being an undefeated team. They really were. I at least felt that way. I felt like you are an elite and I mean the word elite, not statistically, not 4,000 yards a season like Jared Goff will give you 4,000 yards a season. You got Kirk Cousins will give you 4,000 yards. Dak will give you 4,000 yards. Zach Wilson could probably pump you 4,000 yards if you really needed him to. Probably not, but I'm over exaggerating. But, it's that conversation of who's there, who's going to be winning football games. Say the Minnesota Vikings, Gonzo, right now, had Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, or Jalen Hurts. Just one of those guys. Who do you think wins the NFC North? You still think it's the Lions or the Bears? Or are you gonna take Patrick Mahomes and Justin Jefferson?
I'm going to lean toward the Vikings with them too. Only thing that would worry me would be their defense.
Exactly, and that's really what it comes down to. I think because of the contractual situation, because of what they have locked up with Kirk Cousins, and because the ownership apparently loves him, you have those conversations with yourself to where, this is the bed we made. This is who we're rocking with for now. But just imagine if Justin Jefferson had Joe Burrow the way Jamar Chase does. You know what I mean? Like, you start to really question, like, right now, I know what Jared Goff can do. Jared Goff can go to a Super Bowl. I've seen him do it. Can he lose a Super Bowl? Of course, but he can get there. I've seen teams build around him, and they're good enough to get him to the dance. So I know they can. Jordan Love, I haven't even seen that guy tie his shoes. I give no fucks. He's awful. But and then I look at Kirk Cousins, and one thing I know I can get from Kirk is a 500 record. But other than that, not much else. Not much. You're not taking me to the dance. You're not taking me to the Super Bowl. You're not taking me to the NFC Championship. You're not going to do that.
He can he'll get you to the playoffs and,
right.
and maybe win a playoff game.
Right. And you know what, to keep that same energy with Justin Fields, I also don't know. I don't know. Like, I see how you want to be. I see the way you carry yourself. I see how you want to move. I see the way you want to carry and go about this and be the leader of this team and bring a Super Bowl to Chicago. And I love that. But it's also kind of like, don't talk about it, be about it. And that's not a shot at Justin. That's just like, we're going to have to see. And I think that's why with the NFC North, man, like you get two guys who are just kind of there and two guys who you don't know. You know what I mean? And it's like, and one is you really fucking don't know because Jordan Love hasn't done anything low. But it's just one of those things where it's like, with Aaron Rodgers gone, man, it's just like the AFC West. Patrick Mahomes just up and left. Who's taking it?
That'd be a great question.
Who's taking it? Because Justin Herbert could take it. The Raiders could take it. That everybody, the Russell Wilson could take it. Jimmy Garoppolo's proven to be one of those guys who can take you there. He's not. You could build around him. He's not gonna win it for you, but you could build around him. You got Russell Wilson who's done it before.
I'd probably lean toward the Chargers, but it's hard to say them for sure just because we haven't seen Herbert get them to the playoffs and they got to the playoffs, but be able to win a playoff game and do it consistently. We've seen them show flashes and put up all these numbers.
Lead.
And the other reason it's hard for me to take the Chargers is Staley. I saw a guy, Staley, blow a chance to go to the playoffs because he didn't know what the hell he was doing.
Yeah.
Called a timeout. It's like, dude, all you do is let the clock run out.
100%.
But you never know. Never know what's going to happen. And if you get one of these quarterbacks hurt, that can change the whole trajectory of one of these divisions as well. Like Joe Burrow. What do you think since Cincinnati sets Burrow out at the beginning of the season?
No, just a calf strain.
There's been a lot of conversation about that because of that calf. But if he says he's healthy and ready to go, I don't see Cincinnati setting him out.
No, it's for what? There's no reason. You have a calf strain
because you could set him out the first 3 or 4 games, to make sure he's healthy. He could come back that next game and get hurt. I mean, there's no guarantee that just setting him out is going to take care of it.
I think you'll have him sit out the entire preseason. Other than that, not very. I mean, it would have to be like a grade 3 type calf strain like this. I mean, I've seen hamstrings, get torn and just get pulled and it goes for a whole year. You know what I mean? But he seemed all right. Staley fucked up.
I mean, I wasn't talking about last year. I was talking about the year before against the Raiders. But last year, yeah, Staley kind of did screw that game up too. Because who's the head coach? The defense. You can say the defense blew that game, but who's the head coach of that team? Staley is. He should have been getting on that defensive coordinator's ass and be like, "Hey, we need to change something." And guess what? Staley's supposed to be a defensive coach. He's supposed to be a defensive guy.
100%. Gonzo, I gotta dip out of here. I love you. I'm gonna catch you on the flip. But in 2 weeks, I'm coming to Indy. We're gonna see you. Bear down, baby.
In 2 weeks? In 2 weeks, you're gonna be in Indy? All right. Mike had to get out of here. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. This has been the ASAP Afternoon Blitz. Make sure you check out All Sports All Plays Network on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. Also, the ASAP Sports Network app. You can find it at the Google Play Store and at the Apple Play Store as well. Roku, Amazon, all those places. We appreciate everybody watching. We'll be back tomorrow right around 1 o'clock with another episode of the ASAP Afternoon Blitz. Hope everybody has a great day. See you guys tomorrow.